Chandra in Mesha, Luminous Moon in the sign of Aries, the inner landscape of the Initiator, the catalyst for change. Bravely taking on new terrain with an insatiable desire to experience the new and live life to the fullest, the Fool begins the journey. Out of pure darkness, a spontaneous explosion, a chemical reaction ignites seemingly out of thin air. Because in the nothingness, there is first a very strong somethingness. The match strikes, the lightning hits, the soul enters matter, the baby is born. It exists, the gods call out. A fire lit in the darkness. Moon in Aries purposes one to initiate oneself and those around them into a new state of existence. A mind lit with emotional intensity, one circumstance nourished, seeks to find comfort in undiscovered terrain. Unintentionally fresh, disruptive, and provocative, one is pressurized into leadership by their sheer need for discovery and to be discovered. A star is born. This is Moon in Aries. Hi beautiful souls, welcome back to the channel, Soul Awakening with Chan Tia. Welcome to a deep dive in the Moon series. So today we're going to be focusing on Moon in the beautiful energy of Aries. So for each zodiac video series, I'm going to be doing deep dives into each zodiac sign where I have examples of real life people with these placements. I'm going to talk about their experiences, essentially their portfolio, their upbringing, their connection to their mother, their karmic connection to their mother. And this is going to shine a light on what Moon in Aries is here to represent for us. The other thing that I like to focus on when I'm doing deep dives and I'm trying to understand the grahas in Vedic astrology is I'm trying to understand what it's here to teach us or offer to us. So we are going to we are going to have that conversation about how your moon sign is helping to elevate you in some way. What is your lesson to learn? What is your strength? How can you use it? And how can you use it to figure out who it is that you really are and let that aspect of you shine more? So speaking of shining, Moon in Aries really is that star that is born, and we're going to get into that deeper discussion today. So let's go ahead and look over the table of contents. This is what we're breaking down. For every deep dive video series I like to do on the grahas, I like to do a poem. It's like a poem paragraph introduction where I essentially tune into what I'm feeling up or what I'm picking up or what words want to come out of me when it comes to me referencing that zodiac sign and that moon in the zodiac sign. So we're going to talk about A Star is Born. So this is the symbolic energy that wanted to come through. We're going to talk about the process of actually a star formation. And I'm going to use that as symbolic information and translate that into what that symbolizes for Moon in Aries. We're also going to be talking about etymology for Chandra and Mesha. So I will go over the etymology for Chandra in each zodiac sign video. You can skip over if you want to, but we're going to talk about the etymology of Chandra. Where did that word come from? Chandra, and then Mesha. We're going to be discussing the esoteric connection that these words also have. We have basic definitions to go over. So what is the basic definition of moon? What is the basic definition of Aries? We will go over that thoroughly. We're going to do a Moon in Aries breakdown. So we're going to talk about what does Moon in Aries specifically represent. We're also going to be talking about some notable traits of Moon in Aries. And then we're going to tune into our Vedic database. All right, so the Vedic database, this is what was taking me so long. I originally started out with 60 people. I was trying to organize the information. I was combing through each birth chart and I was trying to see, okay, what do we have some consistent times that do work and that do fit these people's lives, and who is more unknown? So I had about a handful of people who had unknown birth dates. I had to set them aside for the house series because I was like, you know what? I feel like I have an idea of where their moon sign may be sitting, specifically like the house it's sitting, but it's just not quite certain. So I set those people aside. We have 8 examples that we're going to be discussing today. We have Teresa of Avila, Eckhart Tolle, Karl Marx, Diana Ross, Celine Dion, David Goggins, Kobe Bryant, and Jeanette McCurdy. And then at the end, we're going to do an outro. So the outro, we're essentially going to summarize what we learned. I already wrote my outro, so I will share that. It's kind of like in poetic form because we got to go out in style. But we're going to summarize our ideas and concepts. And for the outro, I may do a voiceover for it. I may read it while I'm discussing all of these slides that we're going over. All right, let's get started. A star is born. How is a star born? The reason why I felt connected to this, I was trying to think of, where does Aries come from? Before Aries is Pisces. So we have to always remember the wheel. We have to remember that every energy is coming from another and it's transitioning to another because energy is in constant movement, right? It's morphing, it's changing. And Aries is, when the birth chart is captured, this is the essence of something that has been born out of nothing. And it's then moving on to Taurus, where it's becoming something more physical, more tangible. In order for something to be born out of seemingly nothingness, pressure has to be created. So when a star is born, this is where pressure learns to shine. This is the energy of Aries. If you are a Moon in Aries person, psychologically, you're experiencing some sort of pressure where you have to learn. The moon is the mind. You have to learn how to shine. You're here to learn how to shine. So the first part, a cloud of gas collapses. So this is where instability is created through gravitational disturbances, collisions between clouds. So first, instability. Something has to feel unstable, and it's trying to find a new expression of form because it can't stay in that previous form. Second, a protostar forms. So gas heats from compression, pressure is put on it. And what happens is the center object, it starts to spin faster like an ice skater, gaining momentum. So that's very much the energy of Aries. Heat, pressure, momentum. The center is formed. So the center is called the protostar. Then accretion, the accretion disk starts to grow. So a spinning disk starts to form, boom, boom, boom. Gas spirals inward. It gathers a mass for hundreds to millions of years. So this could be a random amount of time where this happens. And I think timelessness is sort of the energy of Pisces, right? So we're kind of moving into this energy of timelessness until, bam, the mass starts to gather. Then a nuclear fusion ignites. Hydrogen atoms begin to fuse into helium, releasing an enormous amount of energy. Aries, a star is born. Hydrostatic balance stabilizes the star. Balanced is formed. Gravity pulls inward. Fusion energy pushes outward. So this is Aries. Aries is this energy of this so much inbuilt energy that it needs to express itself outwardly. It has to. Fire signs are about energy, life force energy knocking at the door. Aries is like, I need to express myself. After this, step 6, it enters into a stable phase. So they doubled on that stabilizing process. This is where life begins. So without a stabilization, without our form, our physical body finding stabilization, we would not be able to exist. So there is some level of stability involved with instability and stability involved with the energy of Aries. So something I noted, without the ending, there is no beginning. So Aries is born from an ending. It comes from an ending. So usually if you have Aries somewhere in your chart, you're a representation of perhaps your ancestors or your parents. You are that catalyst for change in life. Or your life is going to revolve around themes of endings and beginnings. You are here to initiate things. I also wrote here action and reaction. That is Aries. Aries is a reactive action taker sort of energy. So your mind, if you have your moon there, you're always pulled into this energy of action because you're reacting to things. So you're reactive, maybe even expressive, and then you want to do something. That is the energy of Aries. So let's use the proper terminology from Jyotish. Chandra and Mesha. Chandra comes from the Sanskrit verbal root. Kand, to shine, to glitter, to be pleasing, to delight. From this root, related meanings emerge. Well, there we go. Brightness, beauty, charm, emotional soothing, and delightfulness. So Chandra literally carries a sense of the shining one or the pleasing luminous one. Now, let me just go ahead and mention this. I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but I always approach my study, my deep dives as a student. I go into it from a perspective of a student. These are lots of notes. And then on top of the notes, I'm kind of summarizing, I'm responding to the notes, and I'm giving feedback to it because that's how I like to learn. I do go over all of my notes before presentation. I try to, because I want to come in with my own ideas and thoughts. And that is what my intro usually is. That's usually a summation of what I've kind of learned reading all of these notes and trying to understand Moon and Aries. So I come from a student's perspective. I'm not a technical astrologer, but I have an immense amount of respect for Jyotish and Vedic astrology. So I always want to pay homage to it. All right, let's talk about the word Mesha. Mesha appears in classical Sanskrit and older Vedic literature, meaning ram, male sheep, sometimes symbolically virility, force, impulsive energy, sacrificial animal. Interesting. Association with this energy is forward movement, charging forward, taking initiative, raw life energy, heat, and vitality. The energy of the ram. So the ram specifically, let me go ahead and add this on because I did not add it here. The ram is an adult male sheep, one especially with large curved horns. So, this is already focusing on masculine energy, masculine expression. Aries is a fire sign, masculine energy. The key traits is that it's strong. It has a muscular build. So I didn't talk about physical traits, but that might be a portion I might be adding into this series for each of the signs. So perhaps this person would have a robust, strong body. This makes a lot of sense. I find that Aries people tend to have this sort of strong vitality to physically move and do things. So they're given a very beautiful physical form that allows them to endure and to push through. They could have, so it says they have thick wool or hair, depending on the breed, often highly territorial or protective, known for headbutting during dominant battles. So maybe that's some of the traits that you recognize in yourself or someone else who has a Moon and Aries energy. Okay, there's a connection to a mythological ram, the golden ram, who's rescued. His name is Phrixus in hell. Okay. Oh no, the golden ram rescued someone named Phrixus in hell. Interesting. Its golden fleece later became the object of the quest in the story. Argonaut expedition. Abrahamic symbolism in the Bible, a ram appears as a sacrificial substitute in the story, linking the ram to themes of divine provision and sacrifice. Ooh, that's a good one. I caught that as they have here sacrificial animal. I caught that in my moon in Aries. There is a sort of sacrifice that comes with Aries energy that one has to make. For example, I noticed that some Saturn in Aries people are very sacrificial, like martyrs in their lives or their family's lives, where they feel like they have to make huge sacrifices to gain the necessary resources to survive or help their family to survive. There's a survival aspect to Aries as well. So this is a tough energy, and especially when the moon is put in this fiery survival energy, it does put immense pressure on someone. So it's a wonder why these people end up becoming phenomenal leaders because of that pressure. And in fact, I've heard people describe themselves with a strong Aries connection as leaders. They're like, I'm a leader. I had to become one. I didn't have a choice. That's very much the energy of Aries, where it's leader by default. A leader by default. Okay, let's move on to the next part here. We have here Mesha. The Esoteric Connection is connected to the head, the skull, in the Kala Purusha body. The emergence of the individual identity, the spark that initiates creation, very much the star is born, and the fire that breaks inertia. So I liked the symbology of the match, lighting a match, but when I think of Aries, because of its spontaneous creative energy, a match, you physically have to create a match, and then you have to like move it against the thing. So to me, it's not as accurate of a description of what Aries energy is, so much as the response of a match and creating friction to create fire. But to me, a star is much more accurate. A star being born is much more accurate in terms of us understanding what symbology connects with Aries. Let me just look up Kala Purusha real quick. I want to define this. Kala Purusha means, in Sanskrit, the cosmic person of time. In Vedic astrology and cosmology, the zodiac is imagined as a body of primordial being. Each zodiac sign governs a different part. So Aries represents the head. That's perfect. So Kala is time, Purusha, the person, spirit, or the cosmic being. Oh, I love that. Let's go ahead and move on. Yeah, so let's like first house, the head. So moon, let's talk about some basic definitions. So moon represents our psychology, our inner landscape, imagination, fantasies, sense of safety and security, how we feel nourished. How we nourish, our karmic dynamic with our mother, and complexity. This is our mysterious side that gradually is revealed over time. Aries is the first fire sign. It is a movable cardinal sign. Action, independence. What does it represent? Action, independence, leadership, survival instinct, passion, directness, physical vitality, and new beginnings. I like to refer to Moon in Mesha or Chandra in Mesha as the initiator. Moon in Aries offers one the challenge of creating a unique life path, separate from their upbringing. One is called to embrace original thought and knock down barriers that impede growth. One can shatter glass ceilings through sheer willpower and stubbornness. One finds and develops their sense of security through strong instincts as an initiator. Relationship with mother revolves around a theme of internal willpower. The evolved definition or expression of Moon in Aries is one willfully initiates their own unique path and approach to life with little to no judgment, having a healthy reliance on their instincts. Their personal approach serves as inspiration for others. Devolved. One impulsively takes on endeavors without the consideration for one's own well-being or others. One tries to conquer or dominate without the consideration of the consequences. Okay. So remember, the difference between Moon and Aries. So Sun is our expressive self, right? It's our soul expression coming out into the world. Moon represents more of our inner self. So while Sun is definitely a representation of what we are here to achieve, and is connected to our dharmic path on this earth and our purpose, Moon determines how we approach it. So for example, someone who wanted to become, let's say they had a air sign and they wanted to do a communicative career where they created content. Well, a Moon and Aries person would be very competitive with themselves, right? They would strive to perhaps maybe they are a bodybuilder. Maybe they want to show their physical vitality, and that's the kind of content they're creating online. Or they want to, it's gonna have to do with something competitive where they're pushing themselves, because Aries is about the self. So this is about someone pushing themselves. How can I push myself? How can I elevate myself to the next level? When it's devolved, though, this is where one is like trying to conquer, it's trying to dominate over others without consideration of like how other people feel about that. We'll have both examples of that, but I will acknowledge that every person I have today has some remarkable, beautiful examples and traits, even if it is related to the matrix expression of Moon in Aries. So what are some notable traits of Chandra and Mesha? Early success. This is someone who usually finds success somewhat early in life compared to their peers. So these people are recognized, whether this is in youth or young age, or they're able to achieve high heights at a very, young age, whether this is in their 20s or in their 30s. It's like an unusual amount of success. But the thing is Aries finds that success early. They will find that success early. They will be seen early and recognized early, unless there's some delayed timing factors involved in it. But this person is insistent too. They feel this restlessness to find some sort of success or competitive drive, overcoming obstacles. So they're driven to do that early on in life. They may be the first in family to accomplish something. So usually they're the first in family to find whether this is like major success or some sort of success in life, of sort of recognition or overcoming some sort of feat or obstacle that has never been done before. And that's because if we move down the list here, this person is nurtured to figure it out. A Moon and Aries person is born to have to figure it out on their own. That's why they make good elder siblings, perhaps. They are the ones who they're coming into this world with little, I wouldn't say little support, but the support is there to support them figuring it out on their own, to become a leader. Because usually the circumstance has limited resources available to them on purpose. They were born to be a leader. They may be somewhat unconventional. They may have had somewhat unconventional or unusual upbringing. So this, again, it makes them different, right? There's this unique energy connected to Aries. Like they have to have or express themselves in a very unique way. And so their upbringing might have supported this unorthodox, unconventional approach to life. And that's what makes them leaders by example, because they're just kind of being their own unique self. And usually fire signs, lots of personality, they have strong desire to express themselves. And they have an impulsive nature. So this impulsive nature will push them to do things, take action sometimes they're not really thinking about. And especially when you're raising a Moon in Aries, that is, they're going to get into trouble. They're going to get into trouble. They're going to need some structure, some discipline for sure to guide them. So they're natural leaders through circumstantial pressure. So something in their upbringing put pressure on them, whether this is expectations of parents, or maybe they were born in poverty, or their parents were strict. So this is what makes them leaders. So there's never anything to envy about any other sign, because best believe that any sort of sign where someone is pressured into success, there's pressure that comes with it. So nothing to envy there. That kind of pressure is intense. So this is one who is nurtured to figure it out. So usually they have a mothering figure or a nurturing environment where they're like, figure it out, figure it out. This is one who leads with personal desires and ambitions. So usually I find that Moon and Aries people, they pursue their childhood dreams. They pursue things that they've always wanted to do because they're well acquainted with that selfish part of themselves, and they're comfortable with it. They like being selfish. They like doing things they want to do. So this is someone who's going to find time to do selfishly what they want to do, but this can serve as inspiration for others to follow their path. Selfishness can be great in terms of helping people to overcome feats and helping people to become courageous and be courageous in facing obstacles. So it's an admirable trait, but it does at times, can curve them towards being quite selfish. But it also makes them ambitious. All fire signs have an immense amount of ambition behind them, especially if sun or moon is there. This is someone who's going to be ambitious. This is why they're going to obtain that success, usually early on in life, or at some point it's going to be noted, because this personal willpower is quite strong. It's intense. For Aries, that spark is quite intense. A Moon in Aries person could have temper or anger issues. So this is what happens when Moon is put in a fiery sign, especially one such as Aries. This will challenge one with temper issues and anger issues that they're going to have to manage. And this comes with all fire signs. They're all going to have anger issues. If someone has their sun and their moon in a fire sign, this doubly makes anger issues challenging. And this is, again, more discipline. It helps to have some sort of outlet. This is why it makes for good athletes. It helps to have some sort of outlet to express that fiery nature, or some sort of tools like meditation to manage it. This can make someone childlike and also encourages one to follow through with childhood dreams. So there's a childlike playfulness. This is why it makes them good with kids. At times it could make them not so great with kids, but it can make them really good with kids. It can help them to be able to relate to youth, because fire energy is the energy of youth. Yeah, there's a lot of signs, like Brad Pitt is a good one, stellium in Sagittarius. Kobe Bryant, who we have today, is a really great example. He's got Leo and Aries. Loves kids. Moon in Aries can be single-minded and stubborn. So when it comes to their ambitions or their pursuits or whatever they're focused on, they can be very tunnel vision. And this is a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing if it makes them unwavering. It means that they're not as easily influenced by others. It helps to bring out the authentic expression in themselves, regardless of what other people have to say or if they're judging them. It helps them to be resilient in the face of adversity or criticism from others. But it can also make them doubly stubborn, where they're not willing to listen to feedback or adhere to or be fluid. All fire signs are natural comedians. So Moon and Aries can be comedians for sure. And fire signs in general have the ability to just let things fall off of their shoulder, not stress about it, not worry about it, shrug it off, let it go. Like even if they've had intense rivalries, like a intense athlete like Kobe Bryant, they can let it go. They can move on. They can get past it because it was intense in the moment. But after they got what they wanted, or their time has moved on and they're focused on a different goal, now they're not competitive with it anymore. And the fierce fireness nature of it goes away. Moon in Aries will encourage one to have success over major or extreme obstacles. So the key word here is extreme. And obstacles. Extreme. These people go through extreme experiences because Aries is... All fire signs are purification signs, but Aries, because it's forcing someone to find a unique approach to something, there's an extreme nature to the challenge that is offered to the native. So it's like unusual circumstance, unusual obstacles, or this person just they have to do something that other people have never done before. Because of the Mars influence, this may influence someone with that Moon in Aries, and I saw this, especially with those who had a Moon and Mars in Aries, this may mean that one has siblings due to the Mars influence. So regardless of where this person sits on the hierarchy of, firstborn to lastborn, this person usually has siblings. And they typically have brothers as well. And they may even have a preference or be close to their brothers as well. Let's go ahead and move forward. Teresa of Avila, the saint. Born in 1515 in Avila, Spain, Teresa of Avila, Teresa Sanchez de Cepeda, Davila y Ahumada, was raised in a wealthy, devoutly Christian household. Her upbringing, marked by her mother's piety and her father's love of literature, was defined by an early intense interest in saintly stories. Her mother's death and her family's hidden controversies, converted Jewish heritage. Okay, so her life was marked by, and her family's hidden conversos, converted Jewish heritage. She was very close with her mother until her death. She was the third of 12 children, plus 3 more from her father's first marriage. Born to Alonso Sanchez de Cepeda, a successful wool merchant, and Beatriz de Ahumada y Cuevas, her paternal grandfather was a Marrano, Jewish convert, condemned by the Inquisition, forcing her father to work hard to establish an orthodox, old Christian reputation. Deeply influenced by her mother, who was a dedicated Christian, young Teresa read many books on the lives of saints. At age 7, she and her brother Rodrigo were so moved by stories of martyrdom that they ran away to the land of the Moors, seeking death, though they were soon found by an uncle. Lost in adolescence, her mother died when Teresa was 14, causing profound grief. Teresa subsequently turned to the Virgin Mary to be her spiritual mother. During her worldly teenage years and following her mother's death, her interests shifted towards romance novels, fashion, and social gatherings, causing her father to send her to Augustinian convent for schooling, which she initially hated. While not receiving formal schooling, she was literate, and as her health faltered in her late teens, she began reading intense spiritual literature, including the letters of Saint Jerome, which influenced her decision to pursue a religious vocation. Some of the health and challenges that Teresa faced, she battled severe chronic health challenges her entire adult life. Modern scientific and historical analysis of her remains reveal profound lifelong physical hardships, including malaria, frequent fainting spells, a 4-day coma that led to a 3-year paralysis, and a lifetime of excruciating migraines. Her documented medical and physical challenges included paralysis and coma. As a young woman, she fell violently ill, slipped into a coma, and was nearly buried by her community. Though she awoke, she suffered partial paralysis in her legs for 3 years. Foot and joint pain. Forensic studies of her remains show she suffered from severe plantar fasciitis and debilitating heel spurs, likely from walking barefoot. Despite making walking nearly impossible, she traveled extensively across Spain to reform convents. So it's very interesting. The walking barefoot thing was a requirement that she added to the convent at the time. When she was reforming the church, she took it back, or she made things almost a little bit more strict or restricted so that it purified their approach, and it took away the corruption of the Catholic Church. So it took away the corrupted or negative influences. She wanted to focus on purification. And so she was quite serious, quite intense during her time, and it looks like this contributed to some health challenges that is new to me. Spinal deformation. In her later years, she developed kyphosis, a severe forward curvature of the spine. This, combined with osteoarthritis in her knee, caused her significant pain and made breathing difficult. Migraines and vertigo. She frequently dealt with dizzy spells, fainting, and intense stomach ailments. She is now widely recognized as a patron saint of headache sufferers. Exhaustion. Her body was frequently exasperated by a punishing schedule of writing, traveling, and establishing new convents while denying herself adequate rest. Okay, just reading that, I'm like... Just reading that is really interesting, because I personally feel, as we're on a spiritual pathway, the body is the temple, and I think it's very important to take care of it. I think in the 1500s, of course, things were a lot more severe. Things were just much more intense during this period. And people took things to extremes. And her devotion to divine was prioritized over her well-being. in this modern age, we know that prioritizing our well-being is our devotion to divine. So we don't have to do all of that work to feel like we're contributing something. But of course, in the 1500s, you're going to read about someone who is just absolutely abusing their body. Yet at the same time, they are a mystic and they're receiving these powerful insights from divine. Saint Teresa of Avila was a Spanish mystic. So what was her contribution to society? So now that we kind of have a taste of her upbringing and some of the elements that she went through, which is very reminiscent of Moon and Aries, what is her contribution? She was a Spanish mystic, a reformer, an author who revolutionized Carmelite monastic life and Catholic spirituality. She founded the disgraced Carmelite order, revitalizing strict contemplative prayer and becoming the first woman named a doctor. So first woman named a doctor of the church for her profound theological writings. Monastic reform displaced Carmelites. Teresa initiated the Carmelite reform, seeking to return to early austere, strict, very Aries, monastic traditions, emphasizing poverty, cloistered life, and deep prayer. So I think cloistered life is referring to being more in solitude. That's what I think it is. See, a person who is sheltered or isolated from ordinary society is what I'm reading up here. In deep prayer, she established 17 convents known for their dedication to contemplation rather than intense manual labor or begging. Okay, interesting. But it sounded like she lived a life of manual labor from all that traveling, writing she was doing. Known for their dedication to contemplation rather than intense manual labor or begging. Well, that's interesting. Maybe back then their convents, people were just more laborious. They were using their bodies, which is understandable because we evolved to understanding that we should not abuse our bodies. But back then people did however, to survive. So that's incredible. She established 17 convents. That is a notable feat during her time, for sure. So her other contribution was her writings. So theology and spiritual literature. Her writings were considered masterpieces of Spanish Renaissance literature and Catholic theology. So did you hear that? Masterpieces. First in her time to achieve this status. Masterpieces of Spanish Renaissance literature. Key works include The Interior Castle, El Castillo Interior, A Guide to the Soul's Journey through 7 Stages of Prayer to the Mystical Union with God, The Way of Perfection, written for her nuns to provide practical guidance on prayer, The Book of Her Life, autobiography, an examination of her spiritual experiences. So she's talking about herself. That's very Aries. This is what I went through. This is my life. These are my prayers with God. That's very Aries. Doctor of the Church. In 1970, Pope Paul VI honored her with his title for her unmatched insights into mental prayer and her profound influence on Christian spirituality. Collaborative renewal. Along with St. John of the Cross, she established displaced Carmelite monasteries for men. So St. John of the Cross wrote The Dark Night of the Soul. And he also had his own writings that left a profound mark on society and in history. She solidified a lasting dual-gender branch of the order. So with him, because he was a man, she was able to find success in influencing both men and women in the convents to approach things with a more austere strictness. Focus on mental prayer. She redefined, it's very like Aries, like reinventive, unique, redefined prayer not just as a vocal recitation, but as a loving relationship, an intimate chat with God. So this is about like one-on-one. To me, that's also Aries, personalizing things. How would people describe her? They describe her as charismatic, intelligent, witty, and a deeply human leader who was humorous, warm, approachable, and highly determined, strong-willed, yet often misunderstood as a restless, gagged-about nun by critics. She was controversial and disruptive, holy but human. Ultimately, those who knew her well saw her as a masterful strategist who combined high-level spiritual life with practical hands-on leadership. So what are her Aries traits? Leader, bold, determined, strong-willed, a disruptive reformer, someone who faced extreme health obstacles. So there's an extreme nature, facing obstacles. She had a strict upbringing. Her father, when he was like, "You're not acting right," says, "You need to go to a convent." It's like as strict as it gets. She lived sort of an unstrict life, like a very relaxed life when her mother was there. But with her father, what's interesting is I find that Moon and Aries people, because they have to face some sort of extreme. So her losing her mother and having to grieve her mother's death when she was in her youth was an extreme situation. So that Moon and Aries, I think that fiery nature was supposed to be a representation of like something that she went through with her mother. And in this case, it was the lack of her mother not being there, forced her to go to God. It forced her to rely on divine. She pioneered and revolutionized contemplative prayer, conversations with God versus recitation and monastic life. So she was a pioneer. Yeah, I think it's incredible what she was able to do and accomplish as a woman during her time. It's like no wonder why she was canonized a saint later on in life. When we look at her Moon and Aries energy, so she's a 20 degrees Moon and Aries. They said she was born around 5 a.m. That's what was stated online, so I went with that time. But I decided to let go of the ascendant because I wasn't entirely sure what would fit her best. And she has Uranus there. So Uranus is actually electrical insights, interestingly enough. So that is the energy for Saint Teresa of Avila. I think we highlighted all of the Aries traits. Even though she had a comfortable living, it provided her with enough of a foundation for her to be confident in herself. You know, people said she was charismatic and witty. Even though she was a woman during that time, she understood the nature of people. That's that Sun, Venus, Mercury, and Pisces. So that's water signs are very people-oriented. She knew how to interact with people, engage with them, connect with them. But that Moon in Aries said, I want to accomplish something here. I want to leave my mark on society. I want to make a difference. And I'm going to make a difference doing something that people are typically afraid of. You know, she faced against kings. She faced against people of authority to establish this new approach to monastic life. I thought that was quite interesting. And what gave her the force is the energy of the ram. I'm going to push through. I'm going to be stubborn. And I'm going to accomplish what I want to accomplish. Making a remarkable, lasting impression on society through her exemplary approach to contemplative prayer, shared through her writings, Teresa of Avila showed us the magic of spiritual fire. Someone who also learned the magic of their spiritual fire is Eckhart Tolle. Okay. So we got Eckhart Tolle here. This is another person whose birth date is unknown. I felt like he fit as an Aquarius ascendant, but who knows? But we're just going to be looking at his Moon in Aries, and we'll be looking at his conjunction later on when we study his conjunctions. So Eckhart Tolle is known as the thought leader. Born in Lunen, probably saying that wrong, Germany. Hold on. Oh, I said it right. Born in Lunen, Germany, Eckhart Tolle grew up in an tense, often joyless atmosphere with parents whose relationship was filled with conflict. So tense, conflict, very Aries related. He grew up in the aftermath of World War II. Golly, not three. Hopefully not three. He grew up in the aftermath of World War II. So he grew up in post-war Germany, war, Aries, where he often played in bombed-out buildings. Growing up with the awareness of the post-war Germany contributed to an early sense of fear and anxiety, early sense, instincts. From age 13, he lived with his father in Spain, where he skipped traditional high school and instead focused on independent study, independence, Aries, including literature and astronomy. At age 15, he was deeply influenced by reading books by German mystic Joseph Anton Schneider-Franken. At 19, he moved to London teaching German and Spanish, then studied at the University of London in Cambridge. So he's accomplishing all these intellectual pursuits. He's a strong Aquarius energy, so that's not surprising. He's highly intelligent. He has, his brain works fast. He has a Sun-Mercury conjunction as well in Aries. So he's accomplishing all of this at a very young age, right? He's already getting into the mystic, esoteric aspect of life in his youthful, very youthful young age, because he's seeking some sort of relief from the stress and the tension in post-war Germany and his parents' home life circumstance. His nurturing life is not comfortable, so he's trying to seek comfort through literature, through books, through knowledge. So at 19, he moved to London, teaching German and Spanish, then studied at the University of London and Cambridge. During this time, he suffered from severe depression and anxiety. At 29, so we have severe depression, severe. At age 29, after years of suicidal depression, he underwent a profound inner transformation, which changed his life and began his path as a spiritual teacher. So that's a very, that's honestly, typically when people go through awakenings, 20s, 30s, pretty common. But becoming a spiritual teacher, going through this profound inner, I was wondering, like, what sets Eckhart Tolle apart? You know, he had an incredible amount of pressure with that Aquarius energy. Sun Mercury, Aquarius is about pressure. You know, Saturn ruled signs, Capricorn and Aquarius, are about immense amount of pressure. So there's a lot of psychological pressure going on. And now we got Moon in Aries. That's a figure it out. So people wonder, how did this guy have this spontaneous awakening? Well, something in him, especially with that Moon Rahu conjunction in Aries, was forcing him to psychologically figure it out on his own. So he experimented, he tried out different things, and he had to go through that transformation. Otherwise, he wasn't going to live anymore because he didn't want to stay alive. What was Eckhart Tolle's relationship with his mother? So Eckhart Tolle has described his relationship with his mother, Marjorie, as one that evolved into a space of allowing and presence, particularly in her later years. He has spoken of her with gratitude, referencing her at 98 years old as someone who helped ground him in the present moment. In his later life, Tolle spoke of his relationship with his mother as having moved beyond the roles and conditioned patterns that often plagued parent-child dynamics. So he's a Moon Rahu conjunction. We'll talk about that later. But the Moon in Aries is saying, make this different. So sometimes you'll find that a Moon in Aries person will have a very unique relationship with their parent, where their parent is there to teach them a very powerful lesson to understand themselves, to express themselves, or forcing them to express themselves if there's a lot of tension. In this case, there is enough tension where his mother, through her lack of nurturing, helped him to encouraged him to find a different outlet where he wasn't seeing her as his mother anymore. There was no dependency on her. This is my mom. You know, Moon Rahu's very inventive. But he's like, I have to reinvent this relationship so I can psychologically be at peace. Because that Aries energy was definitely causing a lot of tension there, conflict. So it's like either I fight with my mother for the rest of my life, or I find a way to make this relationship different or new, and I learn to let go of this role, and I learn to like it as it is or appreciate it as it is. That's what he figured out. So he moved beyond the roles and the conditioned patterns that often plague parent-child dynamics. He mentioned his mother, Marjorie, in 2020 posts, calling her my mother on her high age of 98. While not focusing on specific traumatic details, Tolle's teachings on managing relationships with parents suggest a move from potential early life friction to a compassionate, non-reactive stance, seeing the parents' limitations as conditioned behavior rather than I cut it off. Don't know where the rest of it went. So seeing it as a conditioned, limitations as conditioned rather than maybe the parents, people thinking, oh, my parent is just this way, I should be mad at them for the rest of my life. Well, why not we just see that they have limits, they're human. And that's what he learned with his relationship with mother. So his relationship with his mother definitely revolutionized his life experience. So Eckhart Tolle's contribution is that he popularized modern spiritual teachings focused on the power of presence, the importance of living in the now, and liberation from the egoic mind. So ego, moon in Aries, Rahu is definitely ego. So he had a strong egoic mind that was like eating away at him. And he had to learn how to evolve past it. His work emphasizes that suffering is caused by an over-identification with a thought stream, proposing a shift in consciousness as the next step in human. The Power of Now. So this is the book I first read, absolutely blew my mind. There's something about the title of that book, the power, Aries, power of now, present moment, now. Aries is the energy of the fool, live in the moment. So Eckhart Tolle is showing that he was able to unlock the magic of Aries. He was able to unlock the magic of his entire chart, honestly, by not reacting, by not trying to change the situation, but actually going inward. So he serves as a prime example for spiritual fire and how Aries can purify the mind. His foundational teaching that only the present moment exists, encouraging a release from rumination on the past or worrying about the future. The pain body. So there's something about those words. So the body, Aries, energy, first house, self, pain, Aries. Aries will teach you something about pain, right? Because it's that pressure to shine. So there's pain associated with Aries. A concept he developed to describe the accumulation of old emotional pain that people carry, which influences their thoughts and behavior. He talks about transcending the ego. He teaches that people can end personal suffering by recognizing that they are not their thoughts, thereby reducing compulsive, involuntary thinking. Beingness over doing. He highlights that true self-worth, Aries 1, true self-worth comes from being present, not from achievements or societal standards. And it's so funny, when I read this stuff, like this is the kind of thing I've been channeling for the past few years. But Eckhart Tolle was essentially channeling the same thing. And when I'm reading over notes, I'm like, yes, he kind of figured it out. He figured it out, man. It's amazing. He figured out how to break free the matrix. So Aries traits. He grew up during post-war. He was way ahead of his time, pioneered a path for others. Resilience through difficult circumstance. He experienced early success. He had anger, frustration issues. He had strong instincts that led him to a spontaneous awakening by 29. He went through a purification process. That is the fire of Aries. Any fire is purification. He led by example. So his books are, well, they're exploring thoughts and ideas, but he does talk about his experiences. And that is what serves as inspiration for other people. That is very Aries-like. He's very authentic. That's how people would describe him. That's fire signs. They're very good at being authentic and humorous. Fire signs are comedians. He always makes people laugh. So there's this energy where he doesn't feel like he's taking things too seriously. Again, he doesn't feel like or look like, and he definitely has mastered the art of not carrying emotional baggage or burdens. And that is what his Aries energy has taught him. Eckhart Tolle has beautifully pioneered a path for the modern approach to thinking. By following his instincts, he has helped many to experience breakthroughs. His example serves as inspiration for us to walk our own unique path. Someone who also cared about the warfare of others and experienced the state of an unhappy, depressed mind is Karl Marx. Karl Marx, the theorist. Karl Marx was born on May 5th, 1818. In Trier, Prussia, modern-day Germany. As the oldest surviving boy of the 9 children, he grew up in a comfortable, middle-class Jewish household that had recently converted to Christianity, so his father could practice law. Both sides of his family came from a long line of rabbis. His mother, Henriette Pressburg, was from Holland, and his father, Heinrich, was a lawyer inspired by Enlightenment thinkers like Kant and Voltaire. To evade anti-Semitic laws barring Jews from higher society and civil service, his father converted to Lutheranism in 1816. Karl was baptized in the evangelical established church at age 6, though he grew up largely indifferent to religion. He was homeschooled until age 12. From 1830 to 1835, he attended the liberal Friedrich Wilhelm Gymnasium in Trier, which was closely watched by Prussian police due to its staff's progressive leanings. Known as a mischievous child, he loved epic storytelling. So epic is very much Aries. As a teenager, he reportedly bullied his younger sisters, very Aries, but showed immense intellectual promise. His father, a liberal, participated in local agitations for a constitution. When his father's group was suspected of singing revolutionary French anthems, the event scandalized the family and exposed the young Marx to the realities of an authoritarian Prussian state. What was his relationship with his mother like? Karl Marx's relationship with his mother, Henriette Pressburg, was notably tense and strained by his radical political choices, constant financial destitution, and ongoing battles over his inheritance. His relationship with his mother deteriorated significantly after his father's passing in 1838. Their dynamic was characterized by several specific factors. Financial tension. Marx relied almost entirely on his father's estate and subsequent advances on his inheritance to survive. Henriette, who controlled the estate, often refused to bail him out. She believed Karl should stop writing radical literature and pursue a traditional, profitable career to earn his own living. Get a real job, sir. That's what she was trying to tell him. A famous quip she is noted for, she reportedly expressed deep frustration with his revolutionary pursuits, famously quipping, "If only Karl had made Capital instead of just writing about it." Religious and societal differences. Henriette came from a long line of prominent Dutch rabbis and resisted her forced conversion to Christianity for a long time. She held conservative attitudes regarding respectability and propriety, which clashed directly with Marx's rebellious lifestyle, atheism, and radical associations. Estrangement. The divide grew so deep that neither Henriette nor the rest of the Marx family attended his wedding to Jenny von Westphalen in 1843. When his mother eventually passed away, she distributed the family inheritance to clear Marx's existing creditors before giving him the remainder. So what's interesting is actually Kobe Bryant went through a similar situation with his mother and his parents. His parents did not attend his wedding when he got married, and there's quite a bit of tension with his parents all the way until his passing as well. So what did Karl Marx pioneer? Karl Marx pioneered the socioeconomic and political theories of Marxism, which advocates for the eventual overgrowth of capitalism in favor of classless communist society where the means of production are commonly owned. His work fundamentally shaped modern social science by establishing several core concepts. Historical materialism, the theory that societal development and history are driven primarily by material and economic conditions, such as who owns the means of production, rather than by ideals or culture. Class struggle, the belief that human history is defined by conflict between the ruling class, bourgeoisie, who own the means of production, and the working class, the proletariat, who sell their labor. Critique of capitalism, the analysis of how capitalist system alienates workers from their labor and drives intrinsic economic crisis, detailed in his magnum opus, Das Kapital. Okay, so essentially, Marx was rebelling against the matrix society. That's essentially what he was rebelling against. It's not, reading over all of this, it's quite simple to see that he just didn't believe in greed. He wanted to live his life differently, but this also created personal struggles for him because he didn't understand the best way to approach it. And honestly, he wasn't taking care of himself, as we will learn. So what were his personal struggles? He experienced chronic poverty and financial instability. So he was dependent on his parents. He was virtually destitute and unable to secure steady, stable income. He survived almost entirely on the generosity of his lifelong friend and collaborator, Frederick Ingalls. So his poverty was so dire in his early years in London, Soho district area, that he could not afford a proper coffin for his infant son, Edgar. The family frequently pawned their belongings just to buy basic food and clothing. He experienced family tragedies. Of the 7 children, Marx and his wife, Jenny von Westphalen, had together 4 died before reaching adulthood. This inflicted immense grief on the family strife. His marriage to Jenny was strained by his constant political exile, poverty, and infidelity. He fathered an illegitimate son, Freddie Demuth, with the family's maid, Helene Demuth. To avoid a societal and political scandal, Ingalls claimed paternity for the child. What ended up happening to his biological son is his paternity wasn't known until Ingalls was on his deathbed. I don't know if he was in his 80s or 70s or something when he passed away, but Ingalls confessed to his daughter, Karl Marx's daughter, that who was the true father. What was ironic is that that child was adopted into foster care and actually went on to live a healthier life. He became like an engineer of some sort, whereas Marx's children were suffering because they were so poor, and he personally was psychologically poor and unstable. Marx also experienced political exile and statelessness. So Marx's radical political writings made him a target of European authorities, leading to his forced exile from Germany, France, and Belgium. He spent the majority of his adult life as stateless refugee in London, frequently dealing with police surveillance and psychological toll of being permanently uprooted from his homeland. What were his health struggles? He suffered from various ailments that severely impacted his productivity, most notably recurring painful carbuncles, skin boils, that made sitting and writing excruciating. He frequently experienced bouts of chronic depression, insomnia, and liver issues, often exacerbated by heavy drinking, a poor diet, and the stress of his relentless work schedule. In his later years, these physical and mental declines slowed his creative output and ability to complete subsequent volumes of Capital. Marx was also a heavy cigar smoker. The death of his wife in 1881 took a severe emotional and physical toll on his already fragile constitution, and he passed away in 1883. So Karl Marx lived a very extreme life. He's a supreme example of Moon in Aries. And when we're looking at his chart here, we got Moon, Sun, Rahu in Aries in the fourth house. So stability and security was not great. That Sun Moon was encouraging him to find authentic expression, but his views were so extreme to the point where he wasn't able to even figure out how to create stability. I would say if one is having such revolutionized opinions or thoughts about life, probably not the best idea to get married or have kids because, especially during that time, things are quite extreme. He had strong extreme beliefs. He shared it to the point where he had to isolate and live in solitude for himself. I think he was probably quite impulsive. He said and did things before he really thought about what he was doing. That's why he wasn't able to create stability in the home life. He was psychologically all over the place. And we'll definitely discuss that when we talk about those conjunctions he has there, and the moon in the fourth house for him. So his mother did support him. So that moon in the fourth house, I think, offered him support. His mother was there to support him, but they were in constant tension with one another. The moon sun Rahu creates a ego battle for sure, and huge power struggles. So he was having power struggles with himself, his mother. He got along a lot better with his dad. The thing about Sun is a dominant energy. Sun is exalted in Aries, so Sun is probably winning. So probably why he had a better relationship with his father than his mother. You put Moon there, that's the sense of safety, comfort, and nurturance, and it makes it harsh, right? So he probably felt like his mother was harsh or didn't, she wasn't supportive, didn't love him, but really she just wanted him to, figure out, do things differently. Yes. So that moon in Aries energy created a rebellious psychology, which he expressed through his writings, a life of extremes and radical beliefs, someone who led by example. So even though he didn't live the best life, we still take on his concepts till today. People are still criticizing capitalism and the greed of society. I'm kind of to the point where I understand that this is a matrix, and I'm not interested in continue. You can break free of the matrix if you ever want to. It takes a lot of work and conscious effort on your part, but it is possible. He didn't involve spirituality. He was an atheist. I think actually if he had connected with more of a spiritual belief system, he would have felt a lot more supported by Mother Earth. Just saying. But he was courageous. He was authentic. He was himself. He wasn't comfortable societally around other people. He was more comfortable with his family and the people he was close with. He had loyal companionship with his wife and with his friend, even though he was not faithful. And that's why his friend was willing to risk his life. His uncles actually didn't believe in marriage and didn't get married. Karl Marx didn't really believe in marriage either, but he did get married, which is interesting. I think because he just wanted to be with his wife, right? His companion. But yeah, overall impulsive, unstable. This is probably the devolved expression of Aries, but there's good traits here. That strong authenticity to live out your beliefs, to actually embody your belief system is very strong. And a moon in Aries pushed him to embody it. It asked him to absolutely embrace this idea for himself and not to just speak it and say it and just be a pretender. He wasn't about that. But he was inconsistent. He was a bit of an alcoholic. He didn't take care of his body. He didn't know how to, because he was just acting and reacting and not really processing things. With his moon in Aries, Karl Marx left his mark on society, also pioneering a path for others and leaving her mark as a cultural icon is Diana Ross. Diana Ross is the legendary singer, cultural icon, and fashion icon. Born on March 26, 1944, in Detroit, Michigan, Diana Ross was the second of 6 children raised in the Brewster Douglas housing projects by her parents, Ernestine and Fred Ross Sr. As a creative child, she aspired to be a fashion designer. She attended Cass Technical High School to study design and hairdressing before forming the Primettes, the group that became the Supremes at the age of 15. She signed with Motown Records prior to her high school graduation in 1962. Her father was a factory worker. Her mother was a school teacher and involved with the church choir. When Diana was 7, her mother contracted tuberculosis. Her and her siblings were sent to live with their grandparents until her mother recovered, and her mother lived till 1984. Her family was very tight-knit and supportive. What was Diana Ross's contribution? She seemed to have a very happy childhood overall amongst her many siblings. We have this beautiful picture with her and her parents. Her parents were very supportive of her dreams and her creative energy. She worked at the Hudson's department store during one time, where, according to biographies, she was the first African American allowed to work outside the kitchen area. That was just one of her many firsts. She pioneered a multifaceted path for Black female artists, setting the standard for glamour, crossover success, and artistic business-driven longevity. As both a lead singer of the Supremes and a solo artist, she redefined popular music by bridging soul and pop, while creating a blueprint for blending music, film, fashion, and business. As the lead singer of the Supremes, she led them to become the most successful girl group of all time, securing 12 #1 hits on the Billboard Hot 100. She helped break down racial barriers in the pop music, leading the Supremes to unprecedented international fame and making Motown a global brand. So this was her huge cultural influence, was involved with that Motown energy. The standard for performers, she established a new polished image for Black female singers, blending vocal versatility with high fashion, sophistication, and glamorous stage presence, and she's probably the reason why Beyonce is Beyonce today. Ross created a robust multimedia career template that included singing, acting, producing, and high-profile fashion, which has been followed by modern artists. Following her departure from the Supremes in 1970, she set a new standard for a female lead singer launching a successful solo career. In 1993, she was declared by the Guinness Book of World Records to be the most successful female music artist in history, with 18 #1 singles total, 6 as a solo artist. She was among the first Black female singers to achieve major success in Hollywood with her film debut in Lady Sings the Blues from 1972, earning her an Oscar nomination for Best Actress. She often designed her own outfits for her films, including the 1975 film Mahogany, showcasing her role as a fashion pioneer. In 1981, she signed a $20 million contract with RCA, which was the largest contract in music history at the time. She's pioneered with her 1980 hit, I'm Coming Out, a song that became an enduring anthem for the LGBTQ community. She famously introduced and mentored the Jackson 5, playing a key role in their early career. So here's her list of accolades. She was the leader of the iconic Supremes, who had 12 #1 pop singles. She received an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress, won a Golden Globe for her role in 1972 film Lady Sings the Blues. She has been awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, and is a Kennedy Center honoree. Recognized as a fashion icon and trailblazer for her crossover appeal in music, film, and television, with over 100 million records sold. She has achieved massive success with hits such as Ain't No Mountain High Enough, Upside Down, and I'm Coming Out, which is my spiritual anthem. Yes, come out the spiritual closet, rebirth. So her private persona, how would people who know her describe her? Those who know Diana Ross privately described her as a highly disciplined, strategic, and unknowable figure who blends immense natural charisma with fierce control over her career and image. She's often described as a warm yet guarded boss and a protective mother who is deeply involved in her business affairs. Diana Ross' children describe her as a fiercely loving, present, and nurturing mother whose momness outshines her global icon status. She is praised for being a dedicated, hands-on parent who prioritized family, provided unconditional support, and taught her children strength, resilience, and independence. So what are her Aries traits? We already heard a ton of them, but she was way ahead of her time. She's a leader, she's independent, warm, charismatic, fire sign energy. She was a force. She was described as a force. But she's also inaccessible, professional, demanding perfectionist. So this makes her this means that she was quite single-minded in her pursuits. And it's also interesting to note that she was part of a girl group called the Supremes. And Supreme translates into highest rank, authority, power, or degree. Diana Ross is a trailblazer. All right, taking a look at her chart here. She has Moon in Aries in the 7th house. Is that right? Oh, yes, that is. So Moon in Aries in the 7th house. Any sort of 7th house placement is great for contracts and partnership. So this would help someone with, this would mean that someone is able to engage with unique contracts. I think Moon in the 7th house would be quite supportive because it's the companion energy. So maybe her mother, that also supported the companionship she was able to have with her mother, that support system she was able to have with her mother. And her dispositor Mars is in Gemini in the 9th house. Nice. She was also a fashion icon. She's a Libra ascendant. She's a Vishaka. That makes sense. Fashion icon, beauty. Known for her beauty, known for her unique beauty. Moon would create more of a unique beauty, luminous beauty, glowing. Very nice. Yeah, I felt like Diana Ross was a beautiful example of this Moon in Aries energy. She popped up in my head and I was like, I need to look into her chart and see what placements she has, because I grew up with Diana Ross. I grew up listening to her music and my dad's influence with Diana Ross, and I absolutely love, when I was getting into divine messages and learning how to channel them, the song that kept popping up was I'm Coming Out. So that is my spiritual anthem. I thought it was interesting that, yes, she's very supportive towards her mother. People felt like she was devoted, committed. Devotional energy is very much Vishaka Libra energy, Libra ascendant, but also moon in the 7th house. It means that her commitments were contractual in a sense, where she would always be committed to those around her or with her. You know, even though Karl Marx had his ups and downs, he was still committed to his wife and taking care of his kids. It's just it was a tough experience for him. He was struggling at it, and it felt like an immense amount of responsibility. A bit of a chaotic space, but it looks like Diana Ross was able to find balance with her situation and that nurturing energy. I'd also like to note with Diana Ross, let me add in this note, with her mother contracted tuberculosis. So that was an extreme situation that forced her to come to terms with death. I think maybe early on, it created an extreme, a mother having an extreme illness. I'm sure the family was worried if her mother was going to live through that. So Aries creates this energy of ending, beginning, life and death, and then life again. So Aries is the energy of life coming back. Even in Teresa of Avila, even though her mother died, she was still inspired from the experience of her mother to go to divine and live life again and to experience a rebirth. And in Celine Dion's story, she's also experienced her own personal rebirth through her grief and through her personal struggles, especially with her health. Moon in Aries in Diana Ross captures the spirit of life itself. Someone whose resilience also helped her to trailblaze a path for women to reach remarkable heights was and is Celine Dion. Celine Dion is the international powerhouse star. Celine was raised in a large, deeply musical Roman Catholic family in Charlemagne, Quebec. As the youngest of 14 children born to parents of modest means, she grew up in a cramped household where resources were scarce, but love and music were central to her upbringing. Her mother was considered the matriarch, Teresa Tanguay Dion. Maman Dion, often affectionately called Maman Dion. So Teresa was a foundational force in Celine's life and career. She famously noticed Celine's remarkable gifts at a young age and even co-wrote the singer's very first song, Ce n'était qu'un rêve. Teresa personally sent a cassette of that song to the music manager Renee and Angel, which I hope I said that right, which officially launched Celine's international career. The two maintained a lifelong unbreakable bond. So Celine had a lifelong unbreakable bond with her mother. Her mother passed away in January of 2020 at the age of 92. She lived a long life. Celine has referred to her mother as her superhero. The patriarch of the family was Edmar Charles Dion, while Therese managed the music trajectory of the household. So very ambitious. Celine Dion's got a moon Rahu in the 10th house. Her mom had ambitions there. While Therese managed the musical trajectory of the household, and also her mother, she stated, her parents sacrificed their dreams for their kids. They had 14 kids, and so their focus was making sure their kids were doing okay. So that Aries energy is about, again, that sacrifice. So while Therese managed the musical trajectory of the household, Edmar was a constant source of quiet encouragement. Working as a butcher, Edmar provided a humble but loving upbringing for his massive family. Though Celine later revealed that her father initially did not want to have children, he became deeply devoted to his family and supported his daughter's rise to fame. He passed away in 2003 at the age of 80. So her father, from the sound of it, was older and also passed away sooner. And, Celine always talks about her family and her parents with the utmost love and respect she has for them. Celine is a devoted mother to her 3 sons, Renee, Charles, and twins Nelson and Eddie. Following the 2016 passing of her husband and longtime manager Renee, she has raised them as a single parent, continuously emphasizing the importance of hard work, family grounding, and unwavering love. So there's that unwavering devotion that Aries can offer to one because it gives them that single-minded focus. Kobe Bryant has the same relationship with his kids too, very much single-minded focus. Diana Ross, they said she was hands-on mother. She was participating in raising her kids. Kobe was talked about and discussed as a hands-on father. By the age of 5, Celine, so what was Celine's accomplishments? So by the age of 5, she was singing to customers at her parents' small piano bar. So this is early age, early success. She's singing, she's leading. She has this incredible musical talent. She was like the youngest. I don't know if she was the youngest, but she was I think she was the youngest of all of her siblings. And it's kind of crazy. She came into the picture and she had this massive support unit around her. And immediately she had this immense amount of talent that propelled her family towards success. Her very first public performance took place at the marriage of her brother, Mikhail, in 1973 when she was just 5 years old. So that's telling you the age gap between her and her brothers, or her siblings. It's huge. By the age of 12, her childhood shifted trajectory. She collaborated with her mother and her brother, Jacques, to compose her first song, Ce n'était qu'un rêve. It was only a dream. Her brother sent a cassette recording of the track to music manager Renee, whom they found on the back of another singer's album. Renee was so blown away by her voice that he mortgaged his own home to finance her debut album, setting her on a path to global stardom. Celine Dion is one of the most successful and celebrated vocalists in pop history. Over a decades-long career, she's achieved over 200 million in record sales, won 5 Grammy Awards, and completely transformed the live entertainment landscape with record-breaking Las Vegas residencies. She has recorded 27 albums, so those numbers are just astronomically huge. Right there. Dion is the best-selling Canadian recording artist of all time and holds numerous milestone figures. Record-breaking sales. She has sold over 200 million albums worldwide. Her 1995 release, Dux, remains the best-selling French-language album in history. Diamond certification, she's the first and only female artist to have tallied 8 million selling albums in the United States. Falling Into You, Let's Talk About Love, and All the Way, a decade of song. Dion's technically skilled octave-spanning voice has earned her some of the highest honors in the entertainment industry. She has won 5 Grammys, including the prestigious Album of the Year for Falling Into You in 1977. She won an Academy Award for Beauty and the Beast, Best Original Song, and My Heart Will Go On from Titanic, Best Original Song, 1998. She was awarded the Choppered Diamond Award at the World Music Awards for being the best-selling female artist of all time globally. She's also received stars on both the Hollywood Walk of Fame and Canada's Walk of Fame. She is conferred with the Legion of Honor, the highest French Order of Merit, and is a companion of the Order of Canada. Often referred to as a queen of adult contemporary, Dion has notched up historically unprecedented runs on the radio and sales charts. She has the most #1 hits on the U.S. adult contemporary radio chart, 11 for any female artist. Her signature, My Heart Will Go On, became one of the most successful and iconic singles in history of cinema and popular music. Dion is credited with changing the Las Vegas entertainment scene, creating models for highly successful modern residencies. A New Day residency, spanning from 2003 to 2007 at the Coliseum at Caesar's Palace. This groundbreaking show ran for 717 performances and remains one of the highest grossing concert residencies of all time. So just incredible vitality. Not only does she have one of the biggest voices, but the ability to reuse the vocal instrument here is just incredible. Celine residency. Due to the massive success of her first endeavor, she returned for a second critically acclaimed residency from 2011 to 2019. At the same venue, ultimately becoming the second woman in history to cross $1 billion in overall concert revenue. Celine Dion has overcome severe adversity, most notably an ongoing 17-year battle with stiff person syndrome. So now we're getting into what are her major challenges. We talked about the major success, but what has made Celine Dion who she is? Now, the rebirth that she's experiencing is because of these experiences. So she experienced stiff person syndrome for 17 years. And this she didn't admit until 17 years later in her documentary, I Am Celine. It's a rare progressive neurological and autoimmune disorder. Despite debilitating muscle spasms and the loss of her vocal control, she continues rigorous therapy. She's also made a triumphant stage return and manages her personal caregiving journey. So that is that struggle that she's going on, she's experiencing behind the scenes. Aries will make you fight. It will make you fight to live, to be here. She navigated a deeply emotional caregiving journey for her late husband, Rene, who battled throat cancer until his passing in 2016. So one of the challenges was her husband was significantly older than her, maybe like 2 decades older than her, if not 3. And so he had throat cancer and he passed away in addition with like old age on top of that, older age. So she had to be there for him. She also suffered the loss of her brother, Daniel Dion, to cancer 2 days after Rene's death. So her career performance hurdles. So the muscle stiffness and spasms from SBF severely impacted her vocal cords, making singing incredibly difficult and forcing the cancellation of major global tours, including the Courage World Tour. But she has experienced a comeback triumph. Very Aries, right? Comeback, triumphant. Despite the extreme odds against her, Dion achieved her goal of returning to the stage, notably with a breathtaking performance at the 2024 Paris Olympics opening ceremony and a subsequent concert residency. So what are her Aries traits? First in the family, 14 kids, but she was, even though her parents were like musicians and did some singing as well, she was the one who propelled the family towards success with out of this world talent. And it's just crazy that she was sort of like that accidental baby. Like her mother was not expecting to get pregnant in her older age. I don't know if her mother was in her 40s. She was a surprise baby. And yet the miracle baby, right, who's propelling this family into success. So she served as a catalyst for her family, changing their life. You know, Diana Ross, I'm sure, very similar story, served as a catalyst for her family to have a totally different life. I'm sure Eckhart Tolle was able to give back immensely to his parents as well in their older years as he gained success with his books. She has a childlike humor. If you ever watch her talk or chat, you know, she has some Leo in her chart, but she has very beautiful childlike humor, where you can tell she's not taking herself so seriously. There's an innocence to her. That's not a word I used for Aries, but there is sort of like a childlike innocence that Aries carries quite beautifully. And it helps to lighten their energy. She experienced an immense pressure to succeed. So she says she has no problem with working hard. She doesn't complain about working hard. She has Mars in the 10th house, which is giving an exalted energy. When it comes to success, there's no hesitancy about her achieving it. She's more than happy to help people out, help the family, work for her success. She is delighted when she's on stage. She's not as delighted when she's struggling with her vocal cords. You know, like psychologically, it's a very painful process for her. And Moon is firing up this like psychological warfare. You know, Moon in Aries is a bit of psychological, literally warfare. And so I think a bit of that stiff person syndrome comes with, you know, exhaustion over time, over-exhausting the body and the psychological warfare. I think she's fighting her body's need to relax. In the documentary I was watching, she was having spasms. What was she? She was having what do you call it when people start spasming? she was having a seizure. That was the word I was looking for. I was going to look it up. She was having a seizure. So there's this brain fighting with body disconnect that's going on with her. She's always had an immense amount of pressure on her since she was a kid. Eventually, that pressure, the dam breaks. And I think that's what the stiff person syndrome is. I really think it's more psychological than anything. I think it's definitely a spiritual issue. I think as much as she likes to sing, I think she should just do it for herself. Now, whenever she wants, come out like Diana Ross every once in a while and just like perform, have fun. But I think as far as working, I think she should retire totally from working. Absolutely. But these athletes, these people with an immense amount of success, they push their bodies past limits. The thing is, our body can be pushed, but our body's not meant to be pushed past these limits over and over and over and over and over again. It's not meant to do that. When we sing, we're not supposed to be singing for the money. I know that's what the Matrix teaches you. We're supposed to sing for ourselves, for our heart, for our spirit when it feels good. I write songs because it feels good. I am not doing it for an album sell. I'm not doing it for nobody. And people ask me, you can do something with your music? I'm like, I've thought about it, but it's really just for myself. It's just for myself. I create whatever I feel good with. What I share, I create what I feel and what I want to share from time to time for free. Happily. So she has no problem with hard work, immense pressure to succeed. At one time she recorded 3 songs per night, which is absolutely insane. She recorded 3 songs per night. That's how intense her work ethic was. She hid her illness from the public for 17 years. There's some pride that comes with that. She was taking medicine. She was taking like a pill of some sort. And pills, as we know, throw the body out of balance. So they're not natural chemicals that the body's supposed to have inside of it for very long. She's had unwavering love for her parents. She has that same unwavering love for her own kids. Unwavering, single-minded energy, Aries. She's overcome major health challenges. She's courageous. She is loyal. Fire signs are loyal. She's lived a fast life, very fire sign energy. She's traveled the world, but didn't see most of it, is what she said. She didn't really live her life. So I hope, Celine Dion, you're living your life now. Okay. It's also interesting to acknowledge that Celine Dion had a strict routine, day-to-day life, as in water, sleeping 12 hours a day. So I feel like, again, that Aries is that single-minded drive to uphold extreme lifestyles or approaches to life. With the love of her mother shining through, Celine was given a heroic example of strength that she too has carried the torch for as she overcomes grief and change. Also not a stranger to change or resilient protective mother is provocative mindset coach and motivational speaker David Goggins. Okay, looking at David Goggins' chart. David Goggins is the extreme mindset coach. He's got his moon in Aries in the 4th house. David Goggins' childhood was marked by severe physical abuse and toxic stress at the hands of his father in Buffalo, New York. From age 6, he endured long hours of forced labor at his family's roller skating rink, which caused him to fall behind academically and develop a stutter and learning disabilities. His alcoholic father regularly subjected David, his brother, and his mother to brutal beatings and emotional torture. Starting at age 6, David was forced to work late-night shifts at his father's skating rink, Skateland, in East Buffalo. This left him sleep-deprived and caused him to miss significant amounts of school. So very similar to the energy he subjected himself to when he became a Navy SEAL, sleep deprivation. Eventually, his mother escaped the abuse, relocating the family to live with his grandparents in Brazil, Indiana. The trauma from his early years left him facing poverty, racism, and a deep, angry depression in his teenage years. He ultimately used these hardships as fuel to develop unparalleled mental toughness, transforming himself into a U.S. Armed Forces icon and renowned endurance athlete. This is how he was able to overcome adversity. David Goggins has a deeply resilient bond with his mother, Jackie, who is credited with teaching him to get up when knocked down, and helping him escape an abusive household. She overcame severe trauma and suicidal ideation to protect her children, and she later collaborated with Goggins to share their story. Goggins' mother left his abusive father, taking David and his brother with her to escape from a hell-on-earth situation. So this escape, again, so extreme situations, Moon and Aries, heroic mother. Mother is protecting the child. Mother is overcoming her own personal adversity, as we've seen with a lot of the Moon and Aries natives. They're overcoming their own adversity. I would say even Eckhart Tolle's mother, who he said his mother was very unconscious, her will to live 98 years is remarkable, right? The resilience to keep living, to keep going in itself is a feat, an unlikable feat that, most do not accomplish. This is something unique to the human experience. A dog in her. So David Goggins emphasizes his mother's resilience, noting she had to fight her own inner strength to survive, and often acted as her own motivator. So, a lot of his books, so when I read most of it, actually I don't even know if I read most of it. I read a nice amount of his book, Can't Hurt Me, and you get a look into his toxic, the toxic stress, the toxic mindset, this forceful voice. So he would be a very good example of a Moon in Aries, what's psychologically going on, because this book is a representation of like this very forceful warrior-like voice in him who's like very hypercritical and judgmental. Now he used that voice to give him tough love, as we're going to learn as we discuss his relationship with his mother. He used that voice as a form of tough love to push himself, to motivate himself. And this is what people have come to idealize or reshape their own psychological experiences after, is that they try to find that motivator voice. Instead of using that voice to fight with ourselves, use that voice to fight for yourself, is essentially his approach to life. His mother taught him to pick himself up rather than always doing it for him. In a lighter moment, she once told him to stop running after a 240-mile race, illustrating her concern for his intense nature. Very Aries. It took them about 4 years to openly discuss their shared trauma, which Goggins views as necessary to owning their story and finding freedom. Goggins has featured his mother in his work, including a notable interview in his book, Never Finished. So David is a primary example of that psychological warfare. He exemplifies it in his book. In his book, he talked about his mother going through abuse. She was essentially treated like crap. And he discussed how his mother had her own psychological warfare that she was struggling with. Her own insecurities that kept her in a toxic relationship. And she really had to dig to find it in herself to escape an abusive relationship. Her husband was physically and emotionally abusive. David Goggins is a retired U.S. Navy SEAL, elite ultra-endurance athlete, and motivational speaker. His primary accomplishments include completing over 70 ultra-marathons, setting a Guinness World Record for pull-ups, 4,030 in 17 hours, and becoming the only U.S. Armed Forces member to complete SEAL, Army, Ranger, and Air Force Tactical Air Controller training. He's the only known member of the U.S. Armed Forces to successfully complete Navy SEAL training, including 2 Hell Weeks, U.S. Army Ranger School, graduating as an enlisted honor man, and Air Force Tactical Air Controller, TACP training. So again, he's completed the 70 ultra distant races, consistently placing in top 5. Notable finishes including 3rd place in the Badwater, 135 in top tier finishes in the Moab, 240 in Infinitus 88K. He's lost 106 pounds in just 3 months to meet the weight requirements for Navy SEAL training. So his Can't Hurt Me book was about his journey to becoming a Navy SEAL. And then that's when soon after, he started doing the marathons as well. But it talked about what he was willing to do, how he's wanting to push his bodies to extreme to obtain the results he wanted. And he was willing to obtain the result by any means necessary. He held the Guinness World Record for completing 4,030 pull-ups. Okay, we read that. He wrote the best-selling memoir, Can't Hurt Me, Master Your Mind and Defy the Odds, a New York Times bestseller, and his follow-up, Never Finished, both of which focus on mental toughness and overcoming extreme adversity. This is a moon in Aries! Overcoming extreme adversity. I mean, Aries is intense. Aries will create... Sometimes you're born in very intense circumstance, but sometimes they'll recreate the circumstance so that they can build up their resilience, their endurance for things. That's very interesting, very intense placement. Okay, so I wanted to add on some more notes. I forgot to talk about David Goggins as a father, since we're talking about moon and this sense of safety and comfort and our nurturing energy, how we feel nourished, and also how we nourish others. It is stated that as the father, Goggins responded to some controversy on the internet. In several public appearances, Goggins vehemently denied being a deadbeat and stated that he provided financial support well beyond the expected requirements. He's asserted that his ex-wife turned his daughter against him during their divorce when Jade was young. So Goggins has stated that he chose to step back because he believed that two parents who strongly disagree would create a toxic, unhealthy environment for his daughter. So this complicated things, I think that's really interesting because I always say that moon kind of complicates things for us because it's a multifaceted energy, right? Our moon energy shifts according to the cycles and seasons of life that we go through. It's our emotional depth. From what I've noticed pattern-wise when it comes to moon and Aries people, they tend to have a strict code of conduct. They tend to have a strict code of conduct when it comes to how they operate as a parent. So they are about duty, because of that Mars energy, that soldier-like energy. They're about duty. And just from his words here, that's what he's conveying. When I was reading parts of his biography, Can't Hurt Me, he also mentioned the same thing, how him and his wife, they got together young. I think they met when they were really young, maybe in high school or something. And then they got back together again. She got pregnant. And then he decided, he was going to stay in the relationship, even though he could sense that it wasn't quite the right fit. And so he felt this responsibility to provide as a father. And later on, they did end up splitting up. But it was conveyed in that book that he did care about his daughter. He did want to help her out, provide for her. And he's conveying that he was trying to be a part of her life in some ways, shape, and form. So I just get this strong duty-like energy from him. I don't really get super nurturing energy here, but I think he just wanted to do what he wanted to do. But he also felt that because his wife was a lot closer to their daughter, and even in the book he conveyed that as well. He conveyed how his wife was very close to their daughter and really wanted her to be with her. And that kind of complicated things because sometimes parents can turn the other parent against the other. So that's all I pick up for him as a father. Very much duty first, doing the job, and then understanding his part in the dynamic because her mother had more of the significant role in her life. How does David Goggins exhibit Aries traits? He leads by example. He overcame major obstacles. He experiences extremes and intense transformations. He has a competitive drive and a very much survivor mindset. So the only thing, I wouldn't say the only thing, the main thing I disagree with David Goggins is he constantly is putting his mind in survival. It's a survival mindset. And this is what most of the people live on in the Matrix. They live on a survivor mindset that keeps them on a cycle of survival so that they can achieve certain results. And it seems like success, or it's producing success, but it's also producing like a slave-like mentality where it keeps you running on the hamster wheel. Now, he feeds off of this energy. It's very much Matrix energy. He's a Capricorn ascendant, which is like the devil card. Capricorns are known for being stuck in and addicted to systems. He has a book that is called Never Finished, right? Never finished suffering. Never finished struggling. Never finished surviving is what it should be called. But other than that, when I was reading it, It is kind of incredible. I think he was very inventive. He's an Aquarius. He was very inventive with his ability to transform his trauma and turn it into an advantage for him. He used it as a tool to strengthen his body, strengthen his mind, strengthen his approach to completion and to attaining certain things. And he has a very tough, he speaks the moon in Aries. When he talks, he sounds like a moon in Aries. He sounds like a warrior, for sure. And let me take another look at his chart. Yeah, moon in Aries in the first. His Mars dispositor is in the... I had a feeling. I was like, past life warrior. Mars in the 12th house, past life warrior. And it's in Sagittarius, a heroic sign. So that might have helped to aid in his grace and the blessing he had with his mother, where he saw his mother as a hero. She was able to overcome adversity. Part of that grace that was granted to them from divine protection. You know, you look at some of the moon in Aries, and some of them are really put in tough situations, but moon in Aries is beautiful, again, for endings and beginnings, a rebirth. And David Goggins is obsessed with that rebirth energy. He's a Rahu and Scorpio, of course. He's constantly reinventing himself and rebirthing himself and trying to obtain different goals. I forgot. I think he did something where he was trying to become, I don't know, like a medic or something like that. So he's always trying to achieve unique goals. With a warrior mentality, David forged the path to success and to new heights of possibilities, sharing the athlete archetype and coming with his own mindset is the mama mentality star athlete, Kobe Bryant. So Moon in Aries creates athletes for sure, especially if they have double fire signs. More fire, the more... sometimes it depends, but yeah, sometimes the more fiery, the more physical. The star athlete, the Black Mamba, and look at him, he's a Sagittarius ascendant. Interesting, right? Heroic energy. Kobe Bryant was born in Philadelphia on August 23rd, 1978, to former NBA player Joe Jellybean Bryant and mother Pam Bryant. Named after a cut of Japanese beef, he grew up with a deep passion for basketball. When he was 6, his family moved to Italy, where he spent his formative years becoming fluent in Italian and falling in love with both basketball and soccer. Kobe Bean Bryant was the youngest of 3 children. His basketball roots ran deep. Aside from his father playing professionally in the NBA and overseas, his uncle was an NBA player, Chubby Cox. When Kobe was 6 years old, his father retired from the NBA and moved the family to Italy so he could continue playing in the Italian league. Pamela Bryant, Kobe's mother, was recognized by Kobe as a pit bull personality. So interesting, he referred to his mother as pit bull, and David Goggins said that his mother had a dog in her. So look at that commonality, very interesting. So she has a pit bull personality with a strong competitive drive that he inherited, often acting as a key driving force behind his career during his early years. So early years, early success. I think Kobe was drafted at age 19 or 20. I think it was right out of high school. He went straight from high school into professional basketball. His parents' tough competitive nature and his father's professional experience, 8 seasons in the NBA, directly influenced his intense athletic drive. But he also had a strained dynamic with his parents. The relationship with his parents, Pam and Joe, grew highly contentious. Again, that moon fiery energy is trying to purify something. It's creating tension. When they disapproved of his decision to marry Vanessa Lane in 2001, resulting in their absence from the wedding. In 2013, a significant feud erupted. So feud, fighting, Aries, erupted when his parents attempted to auction off his high school and NBA memorabilia, including championship rings, without his permission, leading to a lawsuit. So that's really tricky there. While there was some efforts at reconciliation, the relationship remained strained. Though in 2025, NBA player Shaquille O'Neal reported checking in on Pamela regularly. So it's kind of sad. You know, Kobe died young. I don't know if was he 38 or 40? He was young when he passed away. And he was never able to reconcile with his parents, but he used that mentality to try to become the best version of himself. So, defined as constantly trying to be the best version of oneself, focusing on daily improvement rather than results, created what Kobe called the Mamba mentality, and many others refer to the Mamba mentality. So Mamba is like a black snake. It's a big black snake. Interesting. It fits him. He has his Mercury in Auslasia. He's this Mercury in Auslasia. It's very interesting. So I think the snake reference kind of fits him. I'm trying to see if he has any other. He's got Scorpion. I think he has some Jeshta in his chart. Neptune. Yeah. He's a Magha sun legacy. I wish I had gotten his chart when I did the Sun series. It would have been perfect. Known for the 4 a.m. workouts, study game film, and practicing for hours beyond teen requirements to overcome physical limitations, created his relentless work ethic. He secured 5 NBA championships, 2002, 2022, 2009 to 2010, and 2 NBA final MVPs, and 1 NBA League MVP, 2008. Yeah, I grew up with Kobe. My dad's a huge Kobe fan. My whole family's Kobe fans. And I remember watching at least 2 of those championship games. And he has that inspirational energy around him. He's got that sun, Saturn in the 9th house. He's a Sagittarius descendant. It's just like he inspires people. He's able to kind of like drop and then come back. It's crazy. He was selected 18 times for the NBA All-Star game during his 20 seasons in the league. So he experienced a beautiful long career. NBA, he left once he realized it wasn't going to happen. He experienced so many injuries. We're going to talk about that, another representation of that resilient moon in Aries. Kobe Bryant helped the world by championing youth sports, funding critical medical and cultural organizations, and inspiring millions to embrace the Mamba mentality, a relentless pursuit of excellence and resilience. So excellence is definitely the Leo in him, wanting to be the best. Basketball excellence, a 20-year career with the LA Lakers. That's crazy, by the way. Like, people don't usually stay on one team for 20 years. That is like unheard of. A 20-year career with the LA Lakers yielding 5 NBA championships. So he got all of his championships from one team. That is unheard of as well. 18 All-Star selections and 2008 MVP award. It's not, I'm trying to think of, I think there are some people who have like 4, maybe with 1, but 20-year career with the same team is kind of unheard of. And I think there are very few who have tried to create that same success. I know Michael Jordan was on a couple of teams. He was, it was just the Bulls, but I could have sworn he was on a couple of teams. But maybe Michael Jordan, and then I know Stephen Curry is probably up there as well. He won an Oscar for a Best Animated Short Film demonstrating success outside of sports. Yeah, that was, I'm sure there are people who are multi-talented out there. Kobe has Leo in his chart, so he's obviously multi-talented. But I think it was incredible that when he won that Oscar about Dear Basketball, talking about his dream, and he also wrote a book that was also connected to like sports and athleticism that I took a peek at. It was beautiful. It was a rainbow book. It was gorgeous. And the main character was a young girl. And I think he wrote it to inspire his daughters as well. He founded Granity Studios to create content for young athletes and penned children's books to inspire hard work. There we go. I just talked about that. Again, reference to the Mamba mentality, unwavering dedication to improvement, trying to be the best version. And he frequently spoke of the pride and joy he found in being a girl dad to his 4 daughters. He was called a devoted, present, loving, and hands-on father. So what are some of the obvious Aries traits? Single-minded pursuit of success and pursuing childhood dreams, the Dear Basketball, Oscar-winning short film, strong competitive drive. Leads by example. His competitive drive was so strong, he would get into fights with other athletes. That's how intense his athletic drive was. His moon in Aries was so strong in his chart that competitive energy, Sagittarius, Leo, and Aries, he had all fire signs. That competitive energy was so strong, he was experiencing contention with his parents. He probably had longtime athletic enemies. When he was out of the game, he was done. He let it go. He moved on. He said he hated the other teams, when he was playing them, but personally, as a person, he could care less. He was ready to move on with his life. He's someone who leads by example. So Kobe I've never seen it as someone who's like trying to be a leader, trying to guide everyone, trying to mentor everyone. People wanted to be mentored by him or look up to him because of the example he set for himself. So that Moon in Aries, someone is trying to obtain a goal for themselves, and they serve as an inspiration for others by trying to achieve goals for themselves. So their single-minded, personal, psychological perspective, where they're focusing on their own personal goals, ultimately helps to inspire others. And they're also, he's knocking down gas ceilings, he's hitting records, he's, obtaining trophies or results that people could have only have dreamed of, as far as status goes. And he was also financially very well off. Sometimes you will hear in the Bexpo lead that people have a hard time holding on to their money. He was financially quite smart with where he put his money. He was trying to invest it into new technology, and he was trying to think ahead. He was trying to create programs for people. He very much followed his passion. Whatever his passion was, he thrived, and he attracted significant wealth to him. Another trait is that he overcame major obstacles such as injuries, broken fingers, shoulders, ankles, major career-defining injuries. Achilles tendon tear, 2013, suffered on April 12, 2013. This was his most significant injury. That also contributed to, I think, his decline in his physical upkeep. A lot of athletes, they're basically driving their form to the edge. Like they're pushing it they're maxing out on their body. He was basically playing basketball since he was a kid. He was playing it professionally since he was like 18, 19. So essentially, he had pushed his body to the max for 20 years. He was with the Lakers. Like, that's a crazy amount of stress and strain to put on the body. He would push his body to the max. Like, he would have broken things, injured things, sprained things, and he would play on those injuries. And David Goggins, the same thing, same situation. He was, after this Achilles tendon, it was required that he'd have surgery, and he had to experience rehabilitation. He torn a rotator cuff in 2015. A torn right rotator cuff in 2015 caused him to miss the remainder of that season. I think he retired soon after that. Yeah, he retired pretty soon after that. He fractured his knee in 2014, broken hand and wrist in 1999. He missed 15 games for that. Yeah, so absolutely crazy. I remember looking at Kobe's fingers and they were bent. I remember looking at his fingers and they were bent in different directions, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is professional basketball players. That's what their hands look like. It's so crazy. How is he shooting on that? The strain that Kobe experienced with his competitive mother forced Kobe Bryant to dive inward for his own inner strength, which catapulted him into remarkable heights of resilience towards mental and physical pressure. It's also important to note that Kobe had an exalted Jupiter in the 8th house. He also has a Sagittarius ascendant, and then he had a Sun, Saturn in the 9th house. Like, his chart is just absolutely lit, so lit on fire, that it most definitely helped to contribute to the success. And honestly, he probably wouldn't have been able to sustain such a successful career without his stellium in Virgo, which helped to steady the pace a little bit more, because that fiery energy is going to give you wealth, ambition, and success fast and quick. But are you able to keep it and maintain it? He had his Mars sitting in the 10th house, which is helpful because it essentially exalts it. It helps him to be very serious, very ambitious. So his parents' foundational really helped to support him in terms of maintaining, having a successful, ambitious mindset, and he was able to feed off of it. He had some past life support as well with that Magha energy, past life gifts, legacy, literally passed on the genes from his parents to be an incredible basketball player. The strain he experienced with his competitive mother forced Kobe Bryant to dive inward for his own inner strength, which catapulted him to remarkable heights of resilience towards mental and physical pressure. having also experienced toxic strain and pressure from her mother, which in turn encouraged her to establish brilliant independence, is Moon and Aries native Jeanette McCurdy, the child actress. Born in Long Beach, California as the younger sister to 3 older brothers, Jeanette McCurdy's childhood was marked by severe emotional and psychological abuse, intense pressure into the entertainment industry, and controlling behavior from her late mother, Deborah. Raised in a strict, low-income Mormon household in Garden Grove, California, McCurdy was pushed into her acting at age 6 to fulfill her mother's unfulfilled dreams. Her and her siblings were homeschooled. Her mother died in 2013 from breast cancer. After her mother's death, her absent father revealed who her biological father was. Her and her 2 brothers were the result of a long affair. She has no connection with her biological father, a musician, putting stage mom pressure on her. Her mother's moods were erratic, and McCurdy was homeschooled, leaving her isolated and socially cut off from peers. She became the family's primary breadwinner before reaching her teens, appearing in commercials and guest spots on shows like Malcolm in the Middle. Her mother was essentially mommy dearest. Exhibiting extreme control, her mother maintained intense control over her life and body. She dictated her acting choices, initiated calorie restriction when McCurdy was 11 to delay puberty, and reportedly gave her invasive physical examinations until she was a teenager. McCurdy grew amidst trauma, including her mother's long battle with breast cancer and her mother's compulsive hoarding, which left their home completely cluttered. Her memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, became a #1 New York Times bestseller, sold over 3 million copies, and won the 2023 American Library Association Alex Award. That's incredible. I didn't know all that. She starred as Sam Puckett on iCarly in the spin-off Sam and Cat, which were successful shows. She won 4 Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards and a 2011 Favorite TV Sidekick Award. She created, wrote, and starred in her own web series, What's Next for Sarah, created in 2014, and is developing a series for Apple TV+. She released country pop singles Not That Far Away and Generation Love. She created the podcast Hard Feelings with Jeanette McCurdy. So she was able to obtain this success before the age of 34, which is absolutely incredible. The books that she's written, if you look at the covers, are quite provocative, meant to provoke, meant to capture your eye and your attention. She has this sort of courageous approach to how she does things that is off-putting. It requires courage, right? It requires a lot of bravery to want to write a title, something like I'm Glad My Mom Died, or something, her other book that just came out, Half His Age. So incredible success at a young age and recognition. So that's that Moon and Aries traits for sure. How do people describe her? So people who work with her have described her as resilient, candidly honest, and exceptionally intelligent. Peers have described her as someone who is like family, supportive, courageous, introspective, and complicated, which I definitely love for a Moon description. Critics have described her as a talented writer, a storyteller, unflinchingly honest, witty, and humorous. And she's described herself as a recovering people pleaser, someone who is discovering her own agency and independent. Strong Aries traits showing up. So honesty, she's resilient, courageous, she has sharp instincts. When you watch her shows, her comedic timing is brilliant. And I'm guessing that she has that same kind of timing and brilliance in her writing as well. When you look at her chart, you'll see she has some like past life offerings and gifts that she's able to access. She's a really good channeler, which makes her perfect for artistry. And she has some Leo in her chart. She's experienced purification. So the intense abuse led to an intense healing process, very similar to David Goggins. He used it as a opportunity to heal himself or to process the trauma that he went through. So I like to call this like the reverse Uno. She was able to reverse Uno her life. Her mother was very harsh and hard on her, but she turned it into a book. She turned it into alchemized the energy. She turned it into a creative experience for her, where she was able to be candid and honest and talk about her experiences. She was not going to be silenced. She was not going to hold herself away, locked away, hiding or feeling ashamed of her experiences, but she was going to own it instead. So she also experienced early success as a child star. Her brothers auditioned. Her mother had a dream to become famous as well, but it was she, this Moon and Aries child here, who was able to obtain that success. And that happens a lot with Moon and Aries. Like, they're the one who has the talent. She had parentified learned leadership. I feel like this is probably what happened with Kobe. When he married Vanessa, they were very young. I don't know if they were like 20. He's referred to it as how they were practically kids when they got married, and they stayed together until his traumatic, untimely death, tragic death. But I think with him getting money so soon and so fast, and then him having a companion and a partner who he was trying to devote and commit himself to, it was very difficult for him to maintain what dynamic or relationship he was going to have with his parents, who had a part in his upbringing and creating that foundational success for him. But there's a lot of tension, and that happens a lot when people become famous, right? Jeanette's McCurdy's mother, her mother pretty much expected her to take care of her. Her mother felt like she owed her, which she didn't. But she essentially put up with that abuse, and her mom used the advantage of her cancer diagnosis to take advantage of her kids and to feel sorry for herself and make everyone else feel sorry for her until her passing. And I believe her mother had that cancer diagnosis for some time before she finally passed away. So she had the early success as a child star, early age, early success, dealing with that pressure, forced her into parentified leadership. Her mother was essentially not psychologically well enough to take care of the kids. So this forced her to become her own hero, as opposed to her mother being her hero. She became her own hero. And I think that's what gives her a sense of peace. And I guess you can say pride. She feels proud of herself, or her accomplishments, because she's the one who decided to face her demons. And I really love that for her, this evolution that she's going through. She also pursued her dreams with determination. I don't think she was crazy about becoming a child star or an actress, but she definitely loves the writing aspects of it and being behind the scenes. But when you look at her chart, she has innate talents, probably from past life. She's got a Sun K2 Venus, talent. Gemini, skilled in the 12th house, channeling, or past life. So I think she just has natural, innate past life gifts. She was probably an artist or a writer in her past life, and she's just bringing those gifts in this lifetime here. She's got a Mars in the 10th house in Aries. That's essentially exalting Aries. By putting Mars in the 10th house, it does really well in the 10th house. With Moon there. So she has the support of Mars and Moon, but it creates tension. So now you're having power struggles with the mother, you're having contentious energy with the parents and the mother, but at the same time, this is a purification process. It's purifying you. It's teaching you to become your own hero. With that, we get to end this episode for Moon in Aries.
Chandra in Mesha. With Moon in Aries, one is expected to figure it out without the acknowledgement of instant gratification. One must learn to navigate the rough terrain as they reach their multiple destination points up the mountain. The ram's first instinct is not to quit, but to keep going until their goal is achieved. When one's psyche is placed in the fiery nature of Aries, one is given an inbuilt restlessness to achieve their goal by any means. From a devolved standpoint, this may manifest as pointless trophies, but if consciously explored, this offers one the opportunity to purify the mind. Moon in Aries offers a tough, nurturing environment where one's sense of safety is built from the bones of tension, or a mothering figure who, through very real circumstance, has become her child's hero. If not the child's hero, the fiery nature of Mars may incinerate, morphing the mother figure into the native's arch nemesis. Lacking kindness from the nurturing figure, one is then left to turn inwards for safety and security. Without a mother to comfort them, one now has no choice but to become their own hero or heroine. It is with this pressure that one begins to access their authentic light, and a resilient star is born and born again.
And that is what I love about Moon in Aries. This is the ability to rebirth oneself over and over again. Should one choose to continue to climb that mountain, it is up to you. And you can do this by pursuing your dreams, by pursuing the thing that is most authentic to you. That is the beauty of Moon in Aries, and you become a natural inspiration for other people. Moon in Aries is a very tough, intense space. It creates restlessness. It doesn't exactly create a peaceful environment in here, in that mind of that person, of that individual. But it most certainly offers you the opportunity to become your own hero. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Have a beautiful day or evening whenever I see you. Bye.